The 1970s, what a time for car lovers. Big engines, shiny chrome, and muscle cars that ruled the streets. We're talking legends like the Chevelle SS, Hemi Cuda, and GTO Judge, real beasts that still get hearts racing today. But hey, not every car from that era was a winner. Some looked cool but totally missed the mark. In this video, we're counting down the 17 best muscle cars of the 70s. And yeah, we're also calling out the 16 worst. Starting with the best. Number 1, 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454. The 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454 stands as a definitive icon of the muscle car era, often regarded as one of the most powerful and aggressive vehicles to ever hit the American roads. This beast of a machine wasn't just about looks. It was a rolling powerhouse designed to dominate the streets and drag strips. At its heart was the LS6 454 cubic inch, 7.4-liter big block V8, a monstrous engine that churned out a factory-rated 450 horsepower and 500 lb-ft of torque. In reality, these figures were likely underrated, with many enthusiasts and mechanics believing the true output was even higher. The performance numbers were staggering for its time and still impressive today. The Chevelle SS 454 could rocket from 0 to 60 mph in just under 6 seconds, with a quarter-mile time in the mid-13-second range at over 100 mph. These were numbers typically reserved for exotic sports cars, not full-size American coupes. That level of acceleration, combined with the thunderous rumble of the LS6, made the SS 454 a legend at every stoplight. Design-wise, the 1970 model year gave the Chevelle a sharp, aggressive facelift. It featured dual headlights, a muscular stance, and a functional cowl induction hood that funneled cool air into the engine. The SS package added sporty striping, badging, and beefed-up suspension components, along with a 12-bolt rear axle and heavy-duty springs to handle the immense power. The interior was clean and performance-focused, with bucket seats, a center console, and a sport steering wheel that kept drivers firmly in command. Number 2, 1970 Plymouth Hemi Cuda. The 1970 Plymouth Hemi Cuda is a name that commands reverence in the muscle car world. Born out of Plymouth's desire to dominate both the drag strip and the street, the Cuda was the performance variant of the Barracuda, and when equipped with the legendary 426 Hemi engine, it transformed into a brute force machine that quickly became the stuff of legends. The 426 cubic inch 7-liter Hemi V8 was rated at 425 horsepower and 490 lb-ft of torque. Numbers that don't just sound big, they were brutally effective in real-world performance. What made the Hemi Cuda so special wasn't just its horsepower, but how it delivered that power. Thanks to hemispherical combustion chambers and massive dual 4-barrel carburetors, the 426 Hemi was known for explosive acceleration and high revving performance. It could do a quarter mile in around 13 seconds, blisteringly fast for the era. But it wasn't just a straight-line warrior. The Cuda came with performance suspensions, heavy-duty axles, and optional upgrades like the Track Pack, which included a Dana 60 rear axle and a 4.1 gear ratio for even quicker launches. Visually, the 1970 Hemi Cuda was a bold and aggressive masterpiece. It featured a wide, low stance, a dramatic shaker hood scoop, so named because it was mounted directly to the engine and would shake with revs, hood pins, and vibrant high-impact paint options like Limelight and Vitamin C. The interior was equally sporty, with performance gauges, bucket seats, and an optional pistol grip Hurst shifter that gave drivers a feeling of total control. Despite its incredible performance, the Hemi Cuda was a rare beast. Only 652 hardtops and 14 convertibles were produced with the 426 Hemi in 1970, making it one of the most desirable and valuable muscle cars ever made. At auctions, original Hemi Cudas, especially convertibles, fetch astronomical prices, sometimes crossing the $1 million mark. Number 3, 1970 Dodge Challenger RT. The 1970 Dodge Challenger RT Road Track was Dodge's bold entrance into the pony car segment, and it came in swinging with serious style and power. Designed to compete directly with the Ford Mustang and Chevrolet Camaro, the Challenger debuted in 1970 with aggressive lines, a long wheelbase, and a variety of engine options that made it one of the most versatile and intimidating muscle cars of the era. At the top of the performance ladder sat the RT variant, which came standard with a 383 cubic inch Magnum V8 rated at 335 horsepower. However, buyers with deeper pockets could opt for the fire-breathing 446 pack, 3.2-barrel carburetors delivering 390 horsepower, or the legendary 426 Hemi V8 that cranked out 425 horsepower and 490 lb-ft of torque. The Hemi version of the Challenger RT was a street-legal drag strip monster, capable of low 13-second quarter-mile times when driven properly. But the Challenger wasn't just about brute force. Its e-body platform provided a relatively refined ride compared to other muscle cars of the era, and the larger dimensions gave it a more substantial and luxurious feel inside. The interior came with high-back bucket seats, wood-grain trim, and a rally-style dash layout with a full array of performance gauges. Options like the pistol grip, Hurst shifter, and sport steering wheel reinforced its muscle identity. Visually, the 1970 Challenger RT was a knockout. It featured bold stripes, a distinctive split grille, quad headlights, and an optional shaker hood scoop that added drama and function. Rear-end styling was equally muscular, with wide tail lights and an optional bumblebee stripe wrapping around the back. The Challenger RT found fans quickly, but its production run was short-lived due to rising insurance costs, emissions regulations, and declining interest in high-performance cars by the mid-70s. Despite this, it's earned legendary status among muscle car enthusiasts. Number 4. 1970 Buick GSX Stage 1. The 1970 Buick GSX Stage 1 was a bold declaration that Buick, traditionally known for luxury and refinement, could also build a tire-shredding muscle car that would leave many of its competitors in the dust. At a time when muscle cars were judged almost solely by how fast they could tear down a quarter-mile, Buick delivered a shock to the system with a car that was equal parts brute strength and upscale flair. At the core of the GSX Stage 1 was a monstrous 455 cubic inch V8 engine, Buick's largest and most potent. Rated at 360 horsepower and a staggering 510 lb-ft of torque, it was the torque king of the muscle car era. That torque figure wasn't just a number, it translated into instant low-end grunt and lightning-fast acceleration. In independent testing, the GSX Stage 1 routinely clocked quarter-mile times in the low 13-second range, matching or outperforming legends like the Hemi Cuda and Chevelle SS 454. But the GSX wasn't just fast, it was built with purpose. The Stage 1 performance package included higher compression, bigger valves, a radical camshaft, and better flowing heads, giving it real street and strip credibility. It also came with upgraded suspension, a performance axle ratio, and a heavy-duty TH400 transmission or Muncie 4-speed to handle the power. Visually, the GSX was impossible to ignore. It came only in two high-impact colors, Saturn Yellow and Apollo White, each with bold black striping and a massive rear spoiler. Add in hood-mounted tachometers, front air dam, rally wheels, and aggressive graphics, and you had a muscle car that looked every bit as wild as it drove. Inside, the GSX remained true to Buick's luxury roots, with plush bucket seats, full instrumentation, wood-grain trim, and optional air conditioning, features rare in most other muscle cars. This made it a perfect blend of performance and sophistication. Only 678 GSX units were built in 1970, making it a rare gem today. Among those, just 400 were equipped with the Stage 1 package. The 1970 Buick GSX Stage 1 wasn't just a surprise, it was a full-blown statement. Don't sleep on Buick. It's now revered as one of the finest and fastest muscle cars of the era. Number 5. 1971 Ford Mustang Boss 351. The 1971 Ford Mustang Boss 351 may have arrived at the tail end of the muscle car golden era, but it left a lasting impression as one of the most underrated and capable performers of the time. Following the iconic Boss 302 and Boss 429, the Boss 351 was Ford's final hurrah in the Boss series, and it brought serious firepower to the game. Under the hood was the new 351 cubic inch Cleveland V8, which made an underrated 330 horsepower and 370 lb-ft of torque. But make no mistake, this wasn't just a warmed-over small block. The Boss 351 engine came equipped with solid lifters, a high-performance camshaft, a 4-barrel Autolite carburetor, forged pistons, and large port heads. It was a rev-happy engine that loved high RPMs, and when paired with a close-ratio top-loader 4-speed manual transmission and a 3.91 traction-loc rear axle, it made the Boss 351 one of the best handling and hardest accelerating Mustangs ever built. Performance-wise, it could rip through the quarter-mile in the low 14s, with 0-60 times in the mid-5-second range, on par with or better than many big-block competitors. And because it weighed less than many other muscle cars of its time, the Boss 351 offered a more balanced, precise driving experience. In terms of appearance, the stance introduced in the 1971 Mustang redesign, giving it an aggressive, road-hugging profile that made it look as fast as it truly was. The overall styling was sharp and muscular, with a hint of sophistication that matched its unique blend of performance and finesse. Inside, the Boss 351 retained Mustang's sporty layout, but with extra touches for the enthusiast. High-back bucket seats, a center console with performance gauges, and an optional deluxe interior package added a bit of comfort to this serious street machine. And unlike many muscle cars that sacrifice drivability for brute force, the Boss 351 struck a surprisingly good balance between track-ready performance and everyday usability. What also sets the Boss 351 apart is its rarity. Only 1,806 units were produced in 1971, making it one of the rarest Boss Mustangs ever made. Unfortunately, it was also a swan song of sorts. Emissions regulations and insurance premiums were tightening, and Ford would never build another Mustang like it again. Number 6. 1970 Oldsmobile 442 W30. The 1970 Oldsmobile 442 W30 is one of those rare muscle cars that perfectly balance style, sophistication, and staggering performance. While Oldsmobile was often considered a more conservative division under General Motors, the 442, which originally stood for 4-barrel carburetor, 4-speed transmission, and dual exhaust, proved that the brand could go toe-to-toe with the wildest performers of the era. In 1970, the 442 reached its absolute peak. The W30 performance package was the crown jewel, turning the already potent 442 into a legitimate street and strip dominator. Under the hood was a 455 cubic inch rocket V8 engine, officially rated at 370 horsepower and a brutal 500 lb-ft of torque. But just like many cars of the era, that number was conservative. The actual output was likely higher. With a fiberglass hood and functional cold air induction scoops feeding the massive engine, the W30 was all about delivering maximum performance with minimum drama. Thanks to its torque-rich engine and well-tuned drivetrain, the W30 could launch off the line with ferocity, often posting quarter-mile times in the low 13-second range. It came with high-performance cylinder heads, a hotter camshaft, a low-restriction dual exhaust, and a special aluminum intake manifold. Buyers could choose between a heavy-duty turbo-hydromatic automatic or a Muncie 4-speed manual, often paired with a 3.91 or 4.33 rear axle for even quicker acceleration. Visually, the 1970 442 W30 was a showstopper. It featured red inner fender wells, functional hood scoops, bold striping, and optional rear deck spoilers. The dual-sport mirrors and rally wheels further emphasized its muscle car identity. Inside, it carried a blend of muscle and class, comfortable bucket seats, a sport steering wheel, a Hurst shifter, and available rally instrumentation. The 442 W30 was the type of car that could smoke its tires all day, look good doing it, and still carry you comfortably on a highway cruise. Only about 3,100 W30s were produced in 1970, making them a rare and prized catch today. Number 7. 1970 Pontiac GTO Judge. The 1970 Pontiac GTO Judge wasn't just a muscle car, it was a cultural icon. Introduced in 1969 as a bold response to the rising popularity of low-cost street racers, the Judge package gave the already legendary GTO an added dose of style and serious muscle. By 1970, the Judge had evolved into a refined but still ferocious machine, solidifying its place among the best muscle cars of the decade. At its heart was the Ram Air III 400 cubic inch V8, delivering 366 horsepower and 445 lb-ft of torque. Optional was the even more potent Ram Air IV version of the same engine, rated at 370 horsepower but with far more aggressive internals, solid lifters, high-flow heads, and a hotter camshaft that made it a track weapon in disguise. Though slightly detuned compared to the earlier version due to tightening emissions standards, the Judge remained brutally fast and responsive. Acceleration was excellent. Quarter-mile times hovered in the low 14 to high 13-second range, depending on the setup and the driver. The optional close-ratio 4-speed manual transmission and 3.9 or 4.33 rear axle ratios allowed the Judge to launch like a rocket. Pontiac also introduced improved suspension components and handling upgrades, making it more than just a straight-line bruiser. Visually, the 1970 GTO Judge was impossible to miss. It featured bold The Judge decals, colorful striping, a high-impact rear spoiler, and eye-catching color options like Orbit Orange and Cardinal Red. The unique Endura front bumper, which blended into the body and housed hidden headlights, gave it a futuristic look. This was a car that screamed for attention and earned it. Inside, the Judge was more functional than luxurious, but that didn't mean it lacked comfort. A wood-grain dash, bucket seats, Hurst shifter, and rally gauges gave drivers everything they needed to feel connected to the machine. It was a driver's car in the purest sense. Despite all of its strengths, the Judge was discontinued after 1971 due to declining muscle car sales and rising insurance costs. Number 8. 1971 Plymouth Road Runner Superbird. While the more widely recognized version of the Superbird came out in 1970, The 1971 Plymouth Roadrunner continued to carry forward the outrageous spirit and muscle of its aerodynamic predecessor, albeit with a fresh design and a slightly more mainstream presence. Though the massive rear wing and pointed nose cone of the original Superbird didn't return in 1971, the Roadrunner itself remained a strong symbol of performance and attitude, and was still a dominant force in the muscle car world. The 1971 model introduced a sleeker, more rounded fuselage body style, reflecting Chrysler's shift toward more aerodynamic and modern design language. But don't let the rounded edges fool you. The performance under the hood was as sharp as ever. The Roadrunner could be equipped with a range of powerful engines, starting with a base 383 cubic inch V8 producing 300 horsepower. For those seeking true street supremacy, the optional 446 barrel and the iconic 426 HEMI were available. The top-tier HEMI engine, rated at 425 horsepower and 490 lb-ft of torque, could send this beast flying down the quarter mile in under 14 seconds, making it one of the fastest street cars available at the time. The 446-barrel option wasn't far behind, delivering equally thrilling performance with a bit more street practicality. Handling and suspension were also improved for the 1971 model, offering better ride quality and cornering ability compared to earlier years. The optional rally suspension package included beefed-up sway bars, upgraded shocks, and heavy-duty torsion bars, turning the Roadrunner into more than just a straight-line missile. Visually, the Roadrunner retained its unique identity with bold graphics, cartoon bird decals, hood scoops, and optional high-impact colors like curious yellow, sassy grass green, and violet. The beep-beep horn mimicking the cartoon character remained an endearing and unmistakable trademark. Inside, the 1971 Roadrunner offered bucket seats, a sport steering wheel, and rally gauges, ensuring the cabin matched the car's performance persona. Though less flashy than the 1970 Superbird, the 71 model was more refined and better adapted for real-world driving while still offering mind-blowing performance. Number 9. 1970 Dodge Charger RT. The 1970 Dodge Charger RT is often considered one of the quintessential American muscle cars, blending raw power, iconic design, and a touch of Hollywood glamour. While the 1968-69 Chargers had already made a significant mark in the automotive world, largely thanks to their starring roles in films like Bullitt and the Dukes of Hazzard, the 1970 model truly perfected the formula, adding an even more aggressive appearance and performance under the hood. At the heart of the 1970 Charger RT was one of the most potent engines of the era, the 440 cubic inch Magnum V8. With a rating of 375 horsepower and 480 lb-ft of torque, this engine made the Charger RT a force to be reckoned with. For those seeking even more performance, the 426 HEMI engine was available, delivering an eye-popping 425 horsepower and 490 lb-ft of torque. These powerplants, coupled with a choice of manual or automatic transmissions, made the Charger RT one of the quickest cars on the road, capable of reaching the quarter mile in the low 14-second range. The Charger RT wasn't just about muscle, it was about handling and style too. For 1970, the Charger received a complete redesign, featuring a more aggressive front grille, hidden headlights, a pronounced rear end with a distinctive tail light design, and the iconic Coke bottle body shape that made it stand out from its competitors. The performance-oriented RT trim also came with a heavy-duty suspension, front and rear anti-sway bars, and a 3.54 rear axle, which improved the car's road handling and gave it a more planted, composed feel at high speeds. Inside, the Charger RT was both comfortable and functional. It came with bucket seats, a center console, and rally gauges that included a tachometer, speedometer, and oil pressure readings. The interior also boasted options like vinyl and leather upholstery, giving it a premium touch. A Hurst shifter wrapped in a wood grain knob was another nod to the muscle car's performance intentions. On the road, the Charger RT delivered exhilarating acceleration and brutal torque. Its aggressive exhaust note and tire-shredding capability made it a car that could dominate both straight-line drag races and open highways. Yet, it also offered enough refinement to be a daily driver for enthusiasts who wanted both power and comfort. Number 10. 1970 Mercury Cougar Eliminator. The 1970 Mercury Cougar Eliminator is often overlooked in the pantheon of muscle cars, but it's a true gem of the era that deserves far more recognition. Mercury, a division of Ford, introduced the Cougar in 1967 as a more refined alternative to the Ford Mustang, with a more luxurious edge. By 1970, the Cougar had become a serious player in the muscle car market, especially with the introduction of the Eliminator package, which took the Cougar to a whole new level of performance. The Eliminator package was Mercury's answer to the rising popularity of the Mustang Boss 302 and other performance-oriented muscle cars. It came equipped with a choice of powerful engines, the most notable being the 351 cubic inch Cleveland V8, producing 290 horsepower, or the optional 428 Cobra Jet V8, making a serious 335 horsepower. These engines, combined with a choice of a 4-speed manual or 3-speed automatic transmission, allowed the Eliminator to go from 0 to 60 mph in just over 6 seconds, and conquer the quarter mile in the low 14-second range. The performance wasn't just limited to the engine. The Cougar Eliminator featured a high-performance suspension that included heavy-duty shocks, springs, and anti-roll bars, as well as a rear axle ratio of 3:91:1 for quick launches off the line. The car's handling was precise, and with its relatively lightweight body, it offered a great balance of speed and cornering ability, making it just as much of a joy to drive on winding roads as it was to tear up the drag strip. In terms of styling, the Eliminator was unmistakable. It featured bold Eliminator graphics along the sides, a front air dam, and a rear spoiler, along with blacked-out trim to give it an aggressive, race-ready look. The car was offered in bright, attention-grabbing colors like Grabber Orange, Calypso Coral, and Medium Green, making sure it stood out wherever it went. Inside, the Cougar Eliminator maintained Mercury's reputation for refinement while still keeping a performance-oriented edge. It offered bucket seats, a center console, a wood-grain steering wheel, and optional sport gauges that gave drivers all the information they needed during spirited driving sessions. While the Eliminator was an impressive performer, its fate was somewhat sealed by the muscle car downturn in the early 1970s. The rise in insurance costs, combined with tightening emissions standards, meant that Mercury would only produce about 2,250 Eliminators in 1970, making it a rare and sought-after collector's car today. Number 11, 1970 AMC Javelin SSD. The 1970 AMC Javelin SSD is one of the most underrated muscle cars of the 1970s, largely because it came from AMC American Motors Corporation, a company that didn't have the same muscle car pedigree as Ford, Chevrolet, or Dodge. However, the Javelin SSD is proof that performance and style aren't exclusive to the Big Three, and it deserves a place in the pantheon of great American muscle cars. The Javelin, first introduced in 1968, was AMC's entry into the pony car wars, and by 1970 it had evolved into a serious performance machine. The SSD trim, which was the top-of-the-line option for the Javelin, was equipped with several performance upgrades, including a 390 cubic inch V8 engine that produced 325 horsepower and 430 lb-ft of torque. This engine was mated to a 4-speed manual or automatic transmission, and with the right rear axle ratio, the Javelin SSD could accelerate from 0 to 60 mph in under 7 seconds, making it competitive with some of the most famous muscle cars of the era. While the Javelin SSD wasn't quite as powerful as some of its competitors, it more than made up for it with handling and refinement. Unlike some muscle cars that were primarily focused on raw power and straight-line performance, the Javelin SSD had a more balanced suspension system that made it a joy to drive through corners. The car was light and nimble, with independent front suspension and a rear stabilizer bar that provided excellent handling, something that set the Javelin apart from the more sluggish competitors of the time. Stylistically, the 1970 Javelin SSD was a stunner. With its aggressive long hood, short rear deck, and sharp lines, it had a distinctive look that gave it a sense of speed even when standing still. The SSD trim came with bold, racing-inspired stripes, a front chin spoiler, and a rear deck spoiler, making it look like a car ready to hit the track. Inside, the Javelin SSD had bucket seats, an optional center console, and sport gauges, all contributing to a driver-focused experience. What set the Javelin SSD apart from other muscle cars was its combination of performance and comfort. It was a car that could easily hold its own on the drag strip, but it was also a practical and enjoyable daily driver. Plus, with its relatively low production numbers, just over 20,000 units of the 1970 SSD, it became a rare and collectible car. Number 12, 1971 Chevrolet Corvette ZR2. The 1971 Chevrolet Corvette ZR2 was one of the most exclusive and performance-focused versions of the Corvette ever produced, and despite its somewhat low production numbers, it remains a legendary figure in the muscle car world. With its combination of brute force, incredible handling, and sleek design, the ZR2 set itself apart as an elite performance machine. While most Corvettes of the era were designed for grand touring and highway cruising, the ZR2 was built for one thing: pure, unadulterated performance. In 1971, Chevrolet was continuing to refine the Corvette's performance characteristics. The ZR2 option package was a limited edition offering that was primarily designed for enthusiasts looking to get the most out of their Corvette on the track. What made the ZR2 so special was its inclusion of the rare and potent 454 cubic inch V8 engine, one of the largest engines Chevrolet had ever offered in a production car at the time. This engine was rated at 425 horsepower and a massive 500 lb-ft of torque, giving the ZR2 the ability to accelerate from 0 to 60 mph in under 6 seconds and to reach the quarter mile in the low 13-second range, which was extremely impressive for the early 1970s. The ZR2 package also included a range of performance upgrades that made it an even more focused machine. These upgrades included heavy-duty suspension components, a reinforced frame, special performance tires, and a limited-slip rear differential. All these enhancements helped the Corvette ZR2 handle exceptionally well, with precise steering and improved cornering stability compared to regular Corvettes of the era. Visually, the ZR2 was unmistakable. It featured the same stunning body lines and aggressive styling that made the Corvette famous, but the ZR2 package added unique touches like custom racing stripes and specific badges denoting its performance heritage. The Corvette's already sleek and aerodynamic body was paired with distinctive features like a rear spoiler and wider fender flares, which not only gave it an aggressive look, but also helped with stability at high speeds. Inside, the 1971 ZR2 retained the classic Corvette interior, with luxurious touches such as leather seats, a center console, and optional power windows and air conditioning. However, the emphasis was always on performance, and the interior was designed to enhance the driver's connection with the car. The seats were supportive, the steering wheel was responsive, and the gauges were geared toward giving drivers crucial performance information. Despite its exceptional performance capabilities, the ZR2 package was not widely popular due to its high price and limited availability. Only 12 units of the 1971 ZR2 were ever produced, making it one of the rarest and most collectible Corvettes in existence. The combination of its large engine, performance-enhancing features, and extremely low production numbers make the 1971 Corvette ZR2 one of the ultimate examples of Corvette engineering and one of the most sought-after models by collectors today. Number 13, 1971 Dodge Challenger RT. The 1971 Dodge Challenger RT is often remembered as the final full-throttle muscle car from the first-generation Challenger lineup, as the muscle car era was beginning to wind down due to rising insurance costs and tightening emissions regulations. Despite the shifting landscape of American performance cars, the 1971 Challenger RT stood out as one of the most iconic and potent machines of its time, carrying forward the bold spirit of its predecessors while adding some key updates that further solidified its place in automotive history. Under the hood of the 1971 Challenger RT, muscle car enthusiasts were greeted with a range of engine options, including the potent 440 Magnum V8 and the legendary 426 HEMI V8, which continued to be the crowning jewel for any serious performance car. The 440 Magnum produced a healthy 375 horsepower and 480 lb-ft of torque, while the 426 HEMI engine offered 425 horsepower and 490 lb-ft of torque. This made the Challenger RT a dragstrip monster, capable of hitting 0-60 mph times in the low 6-second range and completing the quarter mile in the mid-13-second range, impressive figures for the early 70s. The 1971 Challenger RT was also equipped with a heavy-duty suspension, which included front and rear sway bars, upgraded shocks, and a performance-oriented rear axle ratio. These components allowed the car to handle more predictably at higher speeds and deliver a more engaging driving experience than the base Challenger models. Whether blasting down the highway or carving through tight corners, the Challenger RT excelled in delivering raw, unbridled performance. Styling-wise, the 1971 Challenger RT boasted the signature widebody stance that made the car instantly recognizable, with its long hood, short rear deck, and wide, muscular wheel arches. The aggressive front grille, hidden headlights, and sculpted sidelines gave the car a bold, menacing look, while the rear end featured a new tail light design that was uniquely suited to the car's performance character. The addition of stripes, hood scoops, and rear spoilers further emphasized the Challenger RT's racing heritage and gave it a more aggressive, track-ready appearance. Inside, the Challenger RT offered a range of options that ensured comfort without sacrificing the muscle car feel. Bucket seats, a center console, and sport steering wheels were standard, and the interior featured distinctive trim that set the RT apart from lesser Challenger models. Optional features included leather upholstery and various gauge options, including tachometers and rally gauges, which were a nod to the car's high-performance pedigree. Unfortunately, 1971 marked the end of the Challenger RT's dominance in the muscle car world. The Challenger was redesigned in 1972, and the muscle car segment was severely hampered by the introduction of stricter emissions standards and rising fuel prices. As a result, fewer people were willing to invest in cars like the Challenger RT. Despite this, the 1971 model remains one of the most revered versions of the first-generation Challenger. It's considered by many as one of the final true muscle cars, before the industry shifted toward more fuel-efficient and regulated vehicles. Number 14, 1971 Ford Mustang Mach-1. The 1971 Ford Mustang Mach-1 marked a significant shift for the Mustang line, as it represented the pinnacle of the pony car's performance during the early 1970s. It was a crucial model for Ford, as the automotive landscape was changing rapidly, with stricter emissions regulations and rising insurance rates threatening the muscle car market. Despite these challenges, the 1971 Mustang Mach-1 managed to blend brute power with sleek design, setting the stage for the future of the iconic pony car. Under the hood of the 1971 Mustang Mach-1, buyers were offered a range of potent engine options, including the impressive 351 Cleveland V8 and the monstrous 429 Cobra Jet V8. The 351 Cleveland engine was available in two versions, one producing 285 horsepower and the other with a more aggressive 335 horsepower. However, the real star of the show was the 429 Cobra Jet engine, which turned out a monstrous 370 horsepower and 450 lb-ft of torque. With this engine, the Mach-1 could launch from 0 to 60 mph in just over 6 seconds, a blistering time for the period. The Mach-1 was not just about straight-line speed. It also featured a performance-oriented suspension designed to give it superior handling capabilities. A heavy-duty front suspension, rear stabilizer bar, and upgraded shocks were included in the Mach-1 package, which enhanced the car's ability to tackle tight corners and sharp turns, offering a more refined driving experience than many of its rivals. It was clear that the Mach-1 was engineered for enthusiasts who wanted more than just raw power. It was built to handle as well as it could accelerate. Styling was another area where the 1971 Mustang Mach-1 truly excelled. The car's design was more aggressive and muscular than previous Mustang iterations, with a longer, wider body that exuded a sense of purpose. The Mach-1 featured a hood scoop, matte black grille, and a prominent rear spoiler, giving it a racing-inspired appearance that was immediately recognizable. The exterior lines were bold and dynamic, with a distinctive Mach-1 decal on the sides, making it clear that this was no ordinary Mustang. Inside, the 1971 Mustang Mach-1 offered a performance-focused yet comfortable environment for the driver. Bucket seats, a center console, and a new sporty steering wheel were standard. The interior was designed to keep the driver firmly in control, with the layout and controls positioned for maximum performance. The Mach-1 also featured a unique interior trim, with sportier accents and optional sport gauges that helped reinforce the car's high-performance intentions. The 1971 Ford Mustang Mach-1 was not without its challenges, though. The rise in insurance premiums for muscle cars, along with the oil crisis of the early 1970s, meant that sales of the Mach-1 and other muscle cars were beginning to decline. However, its performance and styling made it a standout model in Ford's lineup, and it became a symbol of the Mustang's adaptability in an increasingly complex automotive market. Number 15, 1971 Plymouth GTX. The 1971 Plymouth GTX represents the final year of Plymouth's iconic muscle car, before the automotive world began shifting its focus away from raw power and performance due to tightening regulations and fuel economy concerns. This final iteration of the GTX was part of the fourth generation of the Plymouth Roadrunner and GTX lineup, which had been pushing the boundaries of muscle car performance since the late 1960s. The 1971 model, however, stands out as a significant marker in the muscle car era due to its blend of performance, luxury, and aggressive styling. For the 1971 model year, the GTX was offered with a range of powerful engine options, though the most noteworthy was the 446-pack V8, which was essentially a triple carburetor version of the regular 440 cubic inch engine. With 390 horsepower and 490 lb-ft of torque, this engine made the GTX one of the most powerful muscle cars on the road at the time. There was also the option of the 426 HEMI V8, although it was rare due to its high price. The HEMI engine was a true performance beast, offering 425 horsepower and 490 lb-ft of torque. These massive power plants allowed the 1971 GTX to tear through the quarter-mile in the low 13-second range and achieve a top speed of over 120 mph, making it one of the fastest cars of the era. Beyond sheer power, the 1971 GTX also featured a robust suspension setup designed for high-performance driving. It included heavy-duty springs, sway bars, and performance shocks, all designed to enhance handling and stability, especially during high-speed driving. The GTX was a muscle car built for both straight-line speed and cornering, offering a more balanced driving experience than some of its competitors. Its handling was precise, and it provided a ride that was firm but still comfortable for daily driving. Styling-wise, the 1971 Plymouth GTX was a bold and aggressive machine. The front end featured a new, more squared-off look with a larger grille and redesigned headlights. The body was wider and longer, and the distinctive GTX badging on the front fenders gave it a unique identity. The aggressive stance was highlighted by a dual-scooped hood, rear quarter decals, and a rear spoiler, giving the car a performance-ready look even when parked. Inside, the GTX offered bucket seats, a center console, and a sporty dashboard layout that kept the driver engaged. The cabin was comfortable and well-appointed, with optional leather upholstery, power windows, and an AM/FM radio for those who wanted to combine muscle with a touch of luxury. However, despite its many attributes, the 1971 Plymouth GTX suffered from a few key challenges. The muscle car market was beginning to slow down, with consumers becoming more concerned about fuel economy and rising insurance rates. Additionally, stricter emissions regulations were making it more difficult for manufacturers to maintain the raw power that defined the muscle car segment. As a result, the 1971 GTX, while still an incredible performer, marked the end of an era for Plymouth's most powerful vehicle. Number 16. 1971 Chevrolet Camaro Z28. The 1971 Chevrolet Camaro Z28 remains one of the most revered models in the history of Chevrolet's legendary Camaro lineup. By 1971, the Z28 was transitioning into an era of tighter regulations, increasing insurance premiums, and rising fuel costs, which significantly impacted the performance of many American muscle cars. Despite these challenges, the Z28 still held onto its reputation as a formidable performance machine and an iconic symbol of American muscle. The heart of the 1971 Camaro Z28 was its 350 cubic inch V8 engine, which, despite being slightly less potent than the large block engines of the previous decade, still delivered an impressive 330 horsepower and 380 lb-ft of torque. This made the Z28 a solid performer for its time, with 0-60 mph times in the low 6-second range and a quarter-mile time that was still competitive with other muscle cars of the era. While the 350 V8 wasn't as extreme as some of the larger engine options from other manufacturers, it still provided a healthy dose of power that made the Z28 a highly enjoyable car to drive. The Z28 was engineered to be more than just a straight-line speedster. It was designed to handle as well as it accelerated, and this was made possible by its finely tuned suspension and upgraded handling components. The Z28 came with a heavy-duty front suspension, rear stabilizer bar, and larger sway bars, which made it one of the more capable muscle cars when it came to cornering and high-speed stability. With its upgraded suspension, the Z28 was able to offer an engaging driving experience, making it an excellent choice for enthusiasts who wanted more than just raw horsepower. They wanted precision and control as well. Styling-wise, the 1971 Camaro Z28 retained the aggressive, sharp lines that had made the Camaro a standout on the streets. The front end was dominated by the signature split grille, with a sleek, low-slung body that exuded both muscle and speed. The Z28 was available in several bold color choices, including rally green, which became a signature hue for the model. The car also sported functional hood scoops, side stripes, and a rear spoiler, all of which gave it a racy, performance-oriented look. The Z28 was instantly recognizable, even from a distance, and its aesthetic appeal was a big part of what made it so popular. Inside, the 1971 Camaro Z28 offered a no-frills, driver-focused cockpit that emphasized performance over luxury. The car featured bucket seats, a center console, and a performance-oriented dashboard with large, easy-to-read gauges that were essential for a performance machine. The interior was functional and designed for driving enthusiasts, with few distractions and a layout that kept the focus squarely on performance. While it wasn't the most luxurious muscle car of the era, the Z28's interior was perfectly suited to its purpose: speed and handling. Despite its performance prowess, the 1971 Camaro Z28 also faced challenges. With the increasing emphasis on fuel efficiency and emissions, Chevrolet had to contend with the shifting tide of the automotive market. The days of massive V8 engines and unchecked horsepower were coming to a close, and the 1971 Z28 was part of that transition. As the muscle car era started to wind down, the Z28 was one of the last true muscle cars to carry the torch, and it remains a beloved model for those who appreciate its raw power, sharp handling, and unmistakable style. Number 17, 1971 Dodge Charger Super B. The 1971 Dodge Charger Super B is one of the final iterations of the Charger in the muscle car era, before the design started evolving into a more streamlined, luxury-oriented vehicle in the following years. The 1971 model was distinct for its muscular build and aggressive performance, staying true to the bold character of the muscle car era. Powered by a choice of V8 engines, including the 383 cubic inch V8 and the 440 cubic inch V8, the Super B offered impressive horsepower, producing up to 370 horsepower. It had the muscle to back up its bold design, with quick acceleration and strong road presence that demanded attention wherever it went. The Super B was also designed to compete with other top-tier muscle cars of the time, providing drivers with a thrilling performance experience. The styling of the 1971 Charger Super B was instantly recognizable, featuring a long and aggressive body with a wide front end and sleek angular lines that set it apart from other vehicles in the segment. It was equipped with a hood scoop that added to its menacing appearance, while the twin racing stripes down the sides gave it a competitive edge, further enhancing its muscle car appeal. The Super B's aggressive stance and bold look ensured that it would stand out on any street or racetrack. On the inside, the Super B was equipped with the essential features needed for a performance car, with bucket seats, a center console, and simple but effective controls designed for high-speed driving. The suspension was also sport-tuned, providing a better grip on the road and improving handling, allowing the car to navigate tight corners with confidence. However, despite its powerful performance and muscular design, the 1971 Charger Super B suffered from the effects of rising insurance premiums and increasing fuel costs, which contributed to its eventual decline in popularity. Let's begin with the 16 worst muscle cars of the 1970s. Number 1, 1971 Chevrolet Vega GT. The 1971 Chevrolet Vega GT was introduced with great promise, but unfortunately it didn't live up to the hype and quickly became one of the most infamous examples of a muscle car gone wrong. While it looked the part with its aggressive styling and sportier trim, its performance was underwhelming, especially for a car that was marketed as a performance vehicle. The Vega GT came equipped with a 2.3-liter inline-4 engine, producing a modest 110 horsepower, which was far from the V8-powered muscle car standards that enthusiasts were expecting. The engine, while efficient for daily driving, lacked the power needed to justify the muscle label. While the Vega's handling was decent for a compact car, it wasn't anything particularly special, and it could not compete with the likes of the Camaro or Mustang. The car's poor build quality, particularly its rust-prone body and underpowered engine, meant that it quickly became a disappointment for performance enthusiasts. Additionally, its small size didn't translate into lighter weight. It was still a heavy car, making it sluggish on the road. The Vega's legacy is marred by its inability to live up to the expectations set by its performance marketing. It was quickly outclassed by its competitors and had a short shelf life in the muscle car world, leaving a trail of disappointed buyers. Number 2, 1971 Ford Mustang Mach-1 351. The 1971 Ford Mustang Mach-1 was a car that promised a lot but delivered less than expected, which is why it finds itself on the list of the worst muscle cars of the 1970s. While it looked fantastic and had some serious muscle car appeal, its performance was notably compromised. The 351 Cleveland V8 engine, though a decent performer in the past, was now hampered by increasingly stringent emissions laws and rising fuel prices. The car, despite its cool looks and stylish details, was slower than its predecessors and did not live up to the raw power expected of a muscle car. The Mustang Mach-1's handling was also underwhelming for a car that was marketed as a performance machine. Its suspension was stiff but lacked refinement, and despite the heavy-duty setup, it was not the sharp, corner-hugging sports car people had hoped for. Instead, the Mach-1 was a rougher ride, not matching the finesse of other muscle cars from its era. Furthermore, the increased weight of the car, thanks to the larger body and added comfort features, made it feel less agile and more cumbersome. Number 3, 1971 AMC Javelin. The 1971 AMC Javelin was a bold attempt by American Motors Corporation to compete in the muscle car market, but unfortunately it didn't hit the mark. Initially, the Javelin had some success with its unique styling and reasonable performance, but by 1971, it was clearly outclassed by the more powerful and sophisticated muscle cars of the era. The 1971 version offered the 360 V8 engine, which produced a respectable 245 horsepower, but compared to its rivals, the Javelin was sluggish and underpowered. While the Javelin was somewhat competent in terms of handling, it lacked the excitement that was typical of a muscle car. It was heavy, not particularly fast, and lacked the precision and responsiveness seen in more competitive vehicles like the Ford Mustang or Dodge Challenger. On top of that, AMC's reputation for reliability was already shaky, and the Javelin's build quality did little to help matters. Many of these cars quickly became rust buckets, making them a poor investment for anyone seeking long-term enjoyment. Number 4. 1971 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray. While the 1971 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray is often revered as one of the greatest sports cars of its time, it is widely regarded as a muscle car failure in the context of the 1970s. By 1971, the Corvette was facing significant challenges. The performance of the 350 V8 engine had been toned down due to new emissions regulations, and the result was a car that no longer had the raw power it was once known for. The Stingray's output was reduced, and with it, the car's reputation suffered. The 1971 Corvette also saw a rise in price, which made it less appealing for buyers looking for a muscle car at an affordable price. Despite its sleek styling and iconic status, the Stingray's performance lagged behind other muscle cars from the period. The lack of real power left many buyers disappointed, and the Corvette began to lose its edge as a performance car, shifting more toward luxury and comfort, which further alienated muscle car enthusiasts. With its high price tag, reduced power, and the growing realization that the sports car market was evolving in a different direction, the 1971 Corvette Stingray marks a low point in the muscle car era. Number 5. 1971 Dodge Dart Swinger 340. The 1971 Dodge Dart Swinger 340 was another muscle car that fell victim to the changing automotive landscape of the early 1970s. While the Dart had earned a reputation for being a solid performance car in the 1960s, the 1971 version failed to live up to expectations. The 340 V8 engine, though capable of producing 275 horsepower, was overshadowed by newer, more powerful engines offered by other manufacturers. The car's performance, while decent, didn't deliver the explosive power that muscle car buyers were hoping for. One of the major issues with the Dart Swinger 340 was its overall build quality. While it looked sharp on the outside, the interior was basic and lacked the refinement of other performance cars. The suspension system was also rather underdeveloped, and the car didn't handle as well as many of its competitors. Though the Dart was a reasonably priced muscle car, it couldn't compete with the more sophisticated offerings from Detroit and beyond. Number 6. 1971 Pontiac Firebird Formula 400. The 1971 Pontiac Firebird Formula 400 was a car that had all the right ingredients but failed to deliver a satisfying performance. While the Firebird line had a rich history and strong following, the 1971 version marked a noticeable decline in both power and handling. The Formula 400 came with a 400 cubic inch V8 engine, which, while capable of producing 330 horsepower, was hampered by the ongoing federal emissions regulations that reduced its output and performance. This made the Firebird Formula 400 seem underpowered compared to previous models and competitors like the Mustang or the Dodge Challenger. One of the biggest issues with the 1971 Firebird Formula 400 was its suspension and handling. Despite the larger V8 engine, the car was not as agile or as fun to drive as it once was. The handling was not as sharp as the earlier iterations of the Firebird, which made it less engaging to drive for enthusiasts who prized precision and cornering capabilities in their muscle cars. Coupled with a soft, comfort-oriented suspension, the Firebird became more of a cruiser than a performance car. Additionally, the 1971 Firebird's build quality was not up to par, with many owners reporting issues with rust and reliability. Despite being a well-known name in the muscle car world, the 1971 Firebird Formula 400 struggled to meet the performance expectations of its time and quickly faded into obscurity. Number 7. 1971 Dodge Charger Super B. The 1971 Dodge Charger Super B is often regarded as one of the biggest disappointments in muscle car history. While the Charger had been a leader in the muscle car revolution of the 1960s and early 1970s, the 1971 model was a far cry from its heyday. The Charger Super B, though visually striking with its bold lines and aggressive styling, had been watered down due to stricter emissions regulations and changes to its engine options. In 1971, the Super B came with a 383 cubic inch V8 engine, which, while still capable of delivering decent power, lacked the brutal performance that had made the Super B so popular in the previous years. The car's horsepower was limited to just 335 HP, making it significantly less powerful than earlier versions. Additionally, the car's handling was far less refined than other muscle cars, and it struggled to deliver the driving experience that enthusiasts craved. Despite its powerful appearance, the 1971 Charger Super B was a disappointment on the road. The car was heavier than earlier models, and its suspension setup couldn't keep up with the handling demands of high-performance driving. It became a shadow of the powerful muscle car it once was, ultimately losing its place in the market. Number 8. 1971 Ford Torino Cobra. The 1971 Ford Torino Cobra was another example of a muscle car that failed to live up to expectations. While the Torino had been a successful muscle car in the late 1960s and early 1970s, the 1971 model saw a decline in both power and appeal. The 429 cubic inch V8 engine, though capable of producing 370 horsepower, was severely hampered by rising fuel prices and new emissions laws, which made it less exciting to drive and less practical for everyday use. The car's handling was also subpar, with the Torino Cobra suffering from a lack of suspension refinement. Though it was marketed as a performance vehicle, it couldn't match the sharp handling of competitors like the Dodge Charger or Plymouth Roadrunner. Additionally, the Torino's styling was somewhat bland compared to other muscle cars of the era, further diminishing its appeal. Number 9. 1971 Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS 454. The 1971 Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS 454 was a case of a muscle car that couldn't quite find its identity. While the Monte Carlo was initially marketed as a personal luxury car, its SS 454 trim aimed to combine luxury with muscle car performance. Unfortunately, the car didn't excel in either category. The 454 cubic inch V8 engine offered decent horsepower, but it wasn't particularly quick or nimble on the road. Despite its large engine, the Monte Carlo lacked the raw muscle car excitement that enthusiasts sought. The Monte Carlo's suspension and handling left much to be desired, especially when compared to other muscle cars. The car was more focused on comfort and cruising, but it didn't offer the performance capabilities required to stand out in a market dominated by muscle car giants like the Dodge Charger and Chevrolet Camaro. The lack of refinement and the compromises in performance made the 1971 Monte Carlo SS 454 one of the lesser-known and least impressive muscle cars of the era. Number 10. 1971 Mercury Cyclone Spoiler. The 1971 Mercury Cyclone Spoiler was a performance car that simply didn't live up to its name. While it looked the part with its bold styling and aggressive trim, the car's performance was a letdown. The Cyclone Spoiler came with a 351 Cleveland V8 engine that produced just 285 horsepower, which was modest compared to its competitors. The car's handling was also far from impressive, with a soft suspension and a tendency to understeer, which made it feel more like a luxury cruiser than a performance car. The Mercury Cyclone Spoiler also suffered from poor build quality, and its reputation for reliability was far from stellar. While its design was interesting and its interior featured a few luxury touches, it lacked the raw excitement and performance characteristics that buyers were expecting from a muscle car. The 1971 Cyclone Spoiler simply didn't have the edge it needed to compete in the muscle car market and was quickly overshadowed by better-built, more powerful competitors. Number 11. 1971 AMC Matador. The 1971 AMC Matador was an attempt by American Motors Corporation to create a muscle car that could compete with the big names like Ford, Chevrolet, and Dodge. Unfortunately, it failed miserably. While the Matador had a decent-sized 401 V8 engine, it lacked the performance and handling that defined the best muscle cars of the era. The Matador was underpowered and sluggish, and despite its sizable engine, it couldn't match the acceleration or driving excitement of its rivals. The car's build quality was also a concern. It was a heavy car, with a bulky frame and poor suspension setup, making it less agile on the road. Additionally, its styling was outdated and didn't resonate with the bold, aggressive designs that were prevalent in the muscle car world. The Matador quickly became a forgotten model, losing out to more popular and powerful muscle cars from other manufacturers. Number 12. 1972 Ford Gran Torino Sport. The 1972 Ford Gran Torino Sport is often remembered more for its iconic TV show appearances than for its performance on the road. While it had aggressive styling and a long hood that screamed muscle car, it struggled to live up to the expectations placed upon it by fans of earlier Ford performance models. The Gran Torino Sport came equipped with a 351 cubic inch V8 that could deliver decent power. But by 1972, strict emissions regulations, and a shift toward insurance-friendly cars had significantly reduced its muscle. The car's weight was one of its biggest drawbacks. Tipping the scales at over 4,000 pounds, the Torino Sport was more of a heavy cruiser than a nimble performer. Acceleration was sluggish, and the handling was boat-like compared to the nimble performance of earlier Mustangs or the lighter Mopar competition. It simply lacked the energy and excitement expected from a vehicle with sport in its name. Worse still, the 1972 redesign prioritized comfort and appearance over raw performance. It leaned more toward being a personal luxury vehicle than a true muscle car. Though the Gran Torino had a loyal following and did well in terms of sales, its lack of punch, bloated styling, and underwhelming drive made it a disappointment for muscle car purists. It marked the beginning of Ford's slow departure from true muscle car DNA. Number 13, 1974 AMC Hornet X. The 1974 AMC Hornet X tried to make a name for itself in the muscle car market, but ended up falling short due to compromises in both power and design. Positioned as a sporty variant of AMC's compact Hornet, the Hornet X received modest cosmetic upgrades and engine tweaks. However, its performance left much to be desired. Even with the top-tier 360 V8 engine, the Hornet X barely pushed out 175 horsepower, a far cry from the muscle car standards of the previous decade. The Hornet X's biggest issue was that it never fully committed to being a muscle car. It lacked the aggressive stance, beefy tires, and rumbling exhaust that made cars like the Dodge Challenger and Chevy Chevelle iconic. The styling was conservative, and the interior was sparse and uninspired. Despite some decals and sporty trim, the Hornet X felt more like a dressed-up commuter than a genuine performance machine. AMC's limited budget meant cost-cutting across the board, and the Hornet suffered from inconsistent build quality and reliability issues. While some fans appreciated its quirky underdog charm, the majority viewed the Hornet X as a missed opportunity. It didn't capture the spirit of the muscle car era and quickly faded into obscurity. Number 14, 1974 Pontiac GTO. The 1974 Pontiac GTO is widely regarded as one of the most disappointing entries in the muscle car saga. Once hailed as the car that started the muscle car revolution, by 1974, the GTO had lost nearly all of its performance identity. With tightening emissions laws, soaring insurance premiums, and shifting public priorities, Pontiac made the controversial decision to downsize and dilute the GTO. The 1974 model was based on the compact Ventura platform and offered a maximum of 200 horsepower from a 350 cubic inch V8. The car's smaller body and uninspired styling were a far cry from the bold looks of earlier GTOs. It lacked the aggressive hood scoops, wide stance, and raw power that had made the nameplate legendary. Worse still, performance was underwhelming. The GTO now felt more like a slightly warmed-over economy car than a street-dominating beast. The automotive press and enthusiasts alike were unimpressed. The 1974 GTO was essentially a badge-engineered version of a compact car with minimal performance improvements. Sales plummeted, and Pontiac pulled the plug on the model after that year. The 74 GTO remains a painful reminder of what happens when marketing overshadows performance and legacy is compromised. Number 15, 1975 Chevrolet Monza 2+2. The 1975 Chevrolet Monza 2+2 was GM's attempt to blend sporty aesthetics with fuel-efficient engineering, but it ended up being neither a proper muscle car nor a memorable sporty coupe. Chevrolet tried to sell the Monza as a sporty subcompact with V8 muscle, offering a 262 cubic inch V8 that produced a meager 110 horsepower. Even with a later optional 350 V8, emissions regulations strangled the engine's potential, and performance remained lackluster. The Monza 2+2 suffered from an identity crisis. It looked sleek with its swoopy fastback design and could be mistaken for a performance machine from a distance. However, on the road, it lacked acceleration, handling prowess, and driver engagement. It was underpowered, overweight for its size, and came with poor ergonomics. Chevrolet's cost-cutting also meant poor build quality, unreliable components, and limited aftermarket support. While the Monza did find a niche following later in drag racing due to its compact frame, the factory version was underwhelming. It remains one of the more forgettable and disappointing attempts to extend the muscle car name into the mid-1970s. Number 16, 1979 Oldsmobile Cutlass 442. By the time the 1979 Oldsmobile Cutlass 442 hit the streets, the muscle car era was effectively over, and this car was one of the final gasps of what once was. What had once been a proud performance badge had devolved into nothing more than a trim package. The 442 of 1979 came with a 305 cubic inch V8 producing just 160 horsepower, a far cry from the fire-breathing Olds 442s of the late 60s. Performance-wise, the car was sluggish and uninspired. Acceleration was disappointing and it couldn't hold a candle to earlier iterations. The 1979 model focused more on appearance, featuring stripes, badges, and interior upgrades than actual speed or agility. The suspension was soft, the steering was vague, and the car had more in common with a comfortable cruiser than a muscle car. Oldsmobile tried to capitalize on nostalgia, but fans of the original 442 were unimpressed. With the malaise era in full swing, the 1979 442 became emblematic of how far the muscle car had fallen. It lacked muscle, had no soul, and was more show than go. Today, it's remembered not for what it accomplished, but for what it failed to be, a proper send-off to an American icon.